Madam Speaker, St. Louis and I rise in support of the article of impeachment against Donald J. Trump. If we fail to remove a white supremacist president who incited a white supremacist insurrection, it's communities like Missouri's 1st District that suffer the most. The 117th Congress must understand that we have a mandate to legislate in defense of Black lives. The first step in that process is to root out white supremacy, starting with impeaching the white supremacist in chief. Thank you, and I yield back.
A few years later.
We also can't conflate the criticism of Israel, the Israeli government, with anti-Semitism. No, I am not anti-Semitic. I have called for peace.
All right, guys, so as promised, I am following up on a video that I made yesterday about the squad boohoo, whining, and crying racism in Congress over Jamal Bowman getting a formal denouncement by Republicans in Congress for his actions of pulling a fire alarm in order to disrupt an official proceeding. Now, during that video, I told you guys that I was going to follow up on that video with this video because there's a whole lot of irony going on in Congress among the squad and the race hustlers of America as the victimhood coalition of the Democrat Party is falling apart, right? It's falling apart because the race hustlers have essentially set the precedent that you don't need to make substantive policy arguments when it comes to defending legislation or when it comes to debating with your political opponent. All you have to do in order to silence dissenting opinions is to just pull the bigotry card, right? Just cry hate, racism, white supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, sexism. Just accuse your opponent of being a bigot.
When you say I'm anti-woke, when you talk about wokeness, you're saying I'm anti-Black and I don't want Black people to speak up for themselves. I don't want equality and justice for Black folks. So I say to those that say wokeness, 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 we're anti-woke. This is not wokeness, what we talked about in here. And you should be on the side of folks who are woke because we're saying no more oppression against our community. So whatever else is being thrown around, unless you are saying I'm racist, white supremacist, and I'm bigoted, stop talking about wokeness. And you can't tell me that I'm wrong because I'm from the very movement where this came about. Don't let a fascist tell you what being woke means. But my Republican colleagues have unironically invited for-profit think tank and oil titans whose expertise is in maximizing profits, especially at the expense of our Black, our brown, and our indigenous neighbors' health, safety, and well-being. One of these so-called energy experts is a philosopher who has previously espoused white supremacist views. For instance, in his 2000 college newspaper, he wrote, quote, "The African and American Studies Department has 23 classes. In many of these classes, African culture is presented not as inferior to Western culture, but as on equal footing with it. In other departments, the same is done with Latin American, Indian, and American Indian culture," end quote. When confronted about these views over 2 decades later, rather than disavow them, he doubled down on this narrative saying, quote, "It has nothing to do with skin color. I was arguing that those cultures overall are inferior to Western culture." We are not inferior to any culture, speaking as a descendant of one of those cultures.
Yeah, so thanks for giving me a minute to address truly despicable and false attack on me, claiming that anything I've ever said is white supremacist and then trying to imply that that somehow applies today. So I don't know if you want to put those cards back up, but what I argued and what I've argued for my entire adult life is that Western culture is superior in the sense that it promotes individualism and freedom. And I have fought my entire life for freedom around the world, including in Africa, including in Asia, including in India. And I want everyone around the world to have the same opportunities that I do in the United States. There are different places around the world that are in many ways inferior. They have female genital mutilation. They have slavery. These are not as good as not mutilating females' genitals and not enslaving people. And so I make no apology. And the idea that this is associated with skin color is despicable and racist. Skin color has nothing to do with ideas. Where you came from geographically is irrelevant. What's relevant is what's true.
Yeah. So the race hustlers of the Democrat Party can't even make an argument for why fossil fuels are bad without pulling the bigotry card, right? They try to smear their opponent as a racist in order to discredit them instead of actually just sticking with the topic at hand and the substance of the topic in the argument, okay? It doesn't matter what it is. This is what they do, right? Just a few days ago, essentially they made the argument that Jamal Bowman should not be denounced because he's a black man, right? Their whole argument for why Republicans should not censure Jamal Bowman was that, well, he's a black man, right? And you're just targeting a black man and you're just racist. You don't want a black man to speak or whatever. This is what they do, okay? So with that being said, the precedent that they've set, not having to actually engage in real arguments, right, to have a political debate, all you have to do is just smear your opponents as bigots, has been turned against them. And it's been turned against them because, like I'm telling you guys, the victimhood coalition of the Democrats are falling apart, right? All of these so-called minority groups who normally wouldn't have anything in common that have all come together because, you know, they want to fight back against the patriarchy or the oppressive white Christian man, right, that Democrats try to make out as the enemy of everybody. These people are finally realizing that, hey, we're not all the same and that we really don't have all that much in common. And the coalition is falling apart over this issue of Israel and Palestine, in which you have the race-hustling Democrats on the side of Palestine, while you have the rest of the party, and also Republicans as well, too, for the most part, on the side of Israel. And now the squad, who, again, has a history of boohoo, whining, and crying racism and bigotry anytime somebody disagrees with them, now are being called bigots, right? They're being called anti-Semitic because of their support for Palestine. And now they're boohoo, whining, and crying about having the bigotry card pulled on them. The irony is delicious. Take a look.
Obviously, your support for the Palestinian community is great, but you still face a lot of criticism at home for being perceived as anti-Semitic. What's your response to that criticism?
So, first of all, let me just say, I have condemned anti-Semitism 800 times over and over, and not just since October the 7th. But this is the thing. As much as it is unacceptable and it is intolerable, we also can't conflate the criticism of Israel, the Israeli government, with anti-Semitism. No, I am not anti-Semitic. I have called for peace for everyone. All life is sacred, and I will not continue to allow people to try to distract by calling me or my colleagues anti-Semitic. You can take it how you want, but at the end of the day, we are the ones that continue to show up and fight for all.
So the question is whether or not that it's weighed the same. I mean, look, there's no hierarchy who gets hated the most. Right. I'm tired of folks, trying to say, no, we're getting hurt more. Everyone gets hurt when we allow any form of hate to increase in our country. But what is really distressing is when, Congresswoman Bush and I are called repugnant, or what is the other word?
Disgraceful.
Disgraceful for calling for a ceasefire, for people to use this moment to try to, in many ways, target women of color, myself as being a Palestinian American, and others, for speaking the truth about what is happening on the ground. I mean, you heard it firsthand from doctors that tell you the reality of what's happening on the ground. But it's very unfortunate. I want, all those that, from college students to those in the workplace, I'm getting the calls of people being pushed to silence, being bullied, some people weaponizing anti-Semitism in a way to silence voices. All of that needs to stop. Americans have a right to speak up. Americans have a right to the institutions they work at or the people that represent them to say, look, this is my opinion. I believe you should support X, Y, and Z. And again, we have to be able to make sure that as we look at all these forms of hate, that it is not being weaponized in a way to silence voices like myself and our, many of the voices that are here.
Wow. Wow. The irony is so delicious, right? It's like a mwah, mwah. Okay, I hope you guys understand why I could not wait to make this video, right? Because the same people that literally smear anybody that disagrees with them, who never actually make arguments based off substance. They can't even make an argument about fossil fuels without boohoo whining and crying racism and smearing people who simply have a political disagreement with them of being bigots, of being white supremacists. These same people who weaponize the bigotry card to silence their political opponents are now boohoo whining and crying, yeah, you can't call me an anti-Semite to silence me. Stop silencing me with the bigotry card, right? This is what they're doing. Again, this is glorious. This is glorious. I'm loving it. The victimhood oppression Olympics of the Democrat Party is destroying them. It's destroying them. These people are getting a taste of their own medicine. And I love it. I love it. Because this is exactly what they deserve. They deserve every single accusation of anti-Semitism, because these are the same people who literally smear everybody that disagrees with them politically as a bigot. You're racist, you hate blacks, you're a white supremacist, this, that, and the other, right? Now all of a sudden these people want nuance. Wait, no. We want a nuanced debate on whether or not Israel should agree to a ceasefire. We want a nuanced debate. We just want peace. Why are you calling me an anti-Semite just for wanting peace? We should be able to call for a ceasefire and have a nuanced policy debate without having a bigotry card poured on us. We don't deserve to be called anti-Semitic for simply supporting a ceasefire. So again, where was all that energy when it comes to any other topic? It's like I showed you guys. Congress will bring people in to testify that are pro-fossil fuels, and Cori Bush will smear them as a white supremacist simply for having a difference of political opinion. Why was this same thing that you guys want to be afforded, right, which is the opportunity to have a nuanced policy debate without being smeared as a bigot, why did you not afford that same opportunity to others, people that you disagree with? Now, when that same tactic that you've weaponized to silence people who you disagree with is being used against you, now all of a sudden you want to cry foul and say this is unfair. Again, where was all this energy before when you were smearing the former president of the United States as a white supremacist, no matter how many times he's denounced white supremacy? Trump has denounced white supremacy so many times just to still be accused as a white supremacist. Oh, what does that sound like? Oh, Cori Bush. I've denounced anti-Semitism so many times, but yet I'm still being called an anti-Semite, says the person that literally still calls the president of the United States, who's denounced white supremacy 1,000 times, a white supremacist. Amazing, right? Absolutely amazing. I love it. I love it. Because this is the type of political precedent that they set, and now they're facing the consequences for it. This is what I say about politics, guys. The pendulum always swings the other way. The tactics that you use against your political opponents will eventually be used against you. In most cases, right now with the current politics, the GOP, they don't use the tactics that Democrats use against them. So maybe that's not true all the time. But when you have strong parties, right, that's what happens. That's what's happening to the squad. The pendulum is swinging the other way. The tactics that they've used to silence their political opponents for years is being used against them. And that's not even the worst thing they have to worry about, because these people are in danger of losing their jobs. Okay, you have the pro-Israel powers that be. Okay, you got to be careful how you frame this, because they might accuse you of being an anti-Semite for simply stating facts about what's happening. But you have groups that have come together that are saying, yeah, we're going to fund candidates to primary these Democrats, right? We're going to fund candidates to get these anti-Semitic Democrats up or out of office. That's what's happening, right? So now, not only are they being smeared as bigots and anti-Semites, they're now facing primary challenges, okay, that are well-funded because of their anti-Semitism, okay? It's so amazing how this is working out. And, here's the thing. In the ideal world, this is not how our politics should be. We should not be smearing people as anti-Semitic or racist or white supremacist or whatever simply for political disagreements. Okay? We shouldn't do that. We should have substantive policy debate. I think personally that you should not be smeared as an anti-Semite because you're neutral on the Israel and Palestine conflict, or just because you support Palestine. I don't think that that automatically makes you anti-Semitic, especially considering how, if you go with the scientific definition of the word Semitic, Palestinians are also Semites, right? I mean, that's just the scientific definition. Now, I know that that definition has expanded to basically just mean anybody that hates, I guess, Hebrew-speaking Jews, right? But again, if you want to go to the scientific definition, I think it's kind of silly. But again, the reason why I think it's kind of silly more so than anything is because we're seeing that term be used to smear anybody that not only, you know, maybe pro-Palestine or neutral on the issue, but if you're not pro-Israel enough, then you're also smeared as anti-Semitic, which is what happened to Charlie Kirk, who definitely is pro-Israel, but because he had a nuanced take on the conflict, aka he brought up the fact that, you know, I think that we're not talking about enough, considering how Israel knew about the attack probably, a year in advance. We should ask some questions about why this attack happened in the first place and why Israel did not stop it despite having some of the best intelligence in the world. Apparently, again, it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel at all, even when you are overtly pro-Israel. Okay, we've seen that label be used against Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, people who I would not define as necessarily pro-Palestinian, but again, because they're not pro-Israel enough, they're anti-Semitic. So I think that is silly. I also think that it's silly that the politicians, Democrats and Republicans, are using so much time in Congress to, you know, denounce anti-Semitism and to denounce people for, again, political disagreements, because that is what's happening, right? You are being called anti-Semitic if you say that, oh, well, I support a ceasefire, or that, you know, I think that, you know, Israel, what they're doing is wrong, you know, when it comes to what's happened with the Palestinians. And I don't like that. And the reason why I don't like that is because that same line of logic and reasoning is the same line of logic and reasoning that is used to smear people in the United States as racist. Well, you're racist because you don't believe in systemic racism, or because you support, you know, a Republican or a conservative, you know, and they're oppressing black people, therefore you must be a racist, right? It's the same line of logic. And that's why I'm not cool with the victimhood Olympics that's happening right now, because that's what's happening in this country. Right now in Congress, what you're witnessing is politicians focus more on the victimhood Olympics. Who's the biggest victim? Is it Jews? Is it blacks, right? Is it Muslims? Is it Palestinians? Is it gays? Is it trans people? Who's the biggest victim, right? That's what's happening right now. It's the victimhood oppression Olympics. And I am sick of it, man. I really am. I don't really have any patience for these people crying Islamophobia, racism, white supremacy, anti-Semitism. I don't have patience for any of these people, because I think all of it really is just, they just throw around the term, right, loosely as a way to silence criticism of them. Okay, it's just as silly as the same people that cry homophobia and transphobia because Republicans don't want porn in schools, right? It's the same thing. It's that silly. All of it is silly, in my opinion, right? But again, the people that set the precedent for this type of silliness in Congress are the race hustlers of Congress, the Cori Bushes, the AOCs, the Ayanna Presleys, the Jamal Bowmans, okay, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Ilhan Omars. These same people who can't make an argument about any policy or any legislation without pulling the bigotry card are the same people that are now boohoo whining and crying about that tactic being used against them, right? This is what you signed up for. This is the type of politics that you signed up for. And that is why I'm just done with all of it. That's why I don't support any of this stuff, right? I don't support labeling anybody as a bigot over political disagreements. Why? It's because of this right here. Because it's easy to say it in the moment. It's easy to just smear your political opponent in the moment as a bigot or a racist or a white supremacist. But again, when that's turned around and used against you in order to silence your opinion, that's when all of a sudden you're going to think and you're going to realize that, damn, these tactics that I'm using weren't right? It's not right for people to do that. Now they're realizing, they're understanding that. Again, it's amazing how in order to red pill a Democrat, you just got to give them what they want every single time. Just give them what they want. This is what you wanted. You wanted our political discussions to simply just be who can be the biggest victim, who can smear their opponent the most as the biggest bigot. That's what you've dumbed down our politics to be. So guess what? Now you got to deal with it. When people disagree with you, when you're in the minority when it comes to your opinion, and people want to silence you, you set the precedent that it's okay for them to do that by just saying that you're a bigot. You signed up for it. Congratulations. You reap what you sow, okay? I think that is hilarious that they're being smeared as anti-Semite because this is the precedent that they signed up for. This is the type of politics that they wanted. So, hey, you made your bed and you got to lie in it. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.